the most expensive mistakes in all of history. Nobody likes making mistakes, especially when there's money on the line. Even mistakes costing as little as 50 cents can be pretty darn frustrating. So imagine how you'd feel if you had made one of the most expensive mistakes in history. Here are the most expensive mistakes in all of history. And if you're a subscriber, well, welcome back to Aquay One. But if you're new to this channel, make sure to click that subscribe button to stay up to date with all our engaging videos and use that trigger finger by smashing that like button. Now, let's get into it. French train company orders trains that are too fat for platforms. French company SNCF flubbed the purchase of 2,000 trains in 2014. The problem? Many of their platforms were too narrow to fit the new trains. The mistake cost around 50 million euros, a steep cost to incur on top of the 15 billion euros they had just paid to purchase the trains. The error occurred when the operator neglected to factor in measurements of train platforms that had been built more than 50 years ago. The process of expanding the 1,300 platforms to accommodate their corresponding trains took 2 years, in a process that was as equally expensive and time-consuming as it was embarrassing. Walkie-talkie building is so reflective it melts car parts. You might have heard of a building so ugly that it hurts your eyes, but you probably never considered a building that can melt a car. The funny-looking building on 20 French Church Street had to shell out some extra funds for sun protection after complaints that it had melted parts of a man's Jaguar that was parked across the street. Martin Lindsay was returning to his vehicle one day when he noticed a photographer snapping pictures of his car. His rearview mirror in part of the body had rippled under the intense heat generated by the reflection off of the side of the building. Developers paid the £946 fee to Mr. Lindsay and had to erect a temporary sunscreen to mitigate sun damage to the surrounding area until a permanent solution was found. Superman's mustache. Though it's never a good sign, reshoots in the film industry are fairly common, especially in massive blockbusters when a lot of money is on the line. After filming Justice League, Warner Brothers decided a few scenes needed to be added or redone. But Henry Cavill had already begun shooting Mission Impossible: Fallout, and this scheduling conflict proved to be quite the hairy situation. Cavill plays August Walker in Fallout, a role that required him to grow a mustache and 5 o'clock shadow. Paramount refused to let him shave to reshoot his scenes of Superman, even though Warner Brothers begged them. Not only did coordinating the reshoots cost around $25 million, the studio had to pay a visual effects crew to remove Superman's mustache in all these scenes. A good thing they nailed it. Maybe not. NASA, Lockheed Martin, and the metric versus standard system. In 1999, NASA lost a $125 million satellite in a classic case of miscommunication. Engineers at Lockheed Martin used the imperial system, inches, feet, miles, etc., when calculating coordinates of a communication station, while NASA used the metric system, centimeters, meters, kilometers, etc. This caused the Mars orbiter to miss its mark, burn up its engine in the atmosphere, and disappear forever. The struggle between competing measuring systems is one most are familiar with. In this case, a small error ended up costing this team of engineers big. They flung an expensive satellite out of orbit, lost in space, likely orbiting the sun. If there is a silver lining, it's that the team will likely never repeat the mistake. Publishers pass on Harry Potter. Undoubtedly, you've heard the story. Not Harry Potter's story, but the story behind his. The one about the woman who wrote the books. J.K. Rowling had humble beginnings, writing the Harry Potter stories mostly on scraps of paper. After she finished writing, the books catapulted her to success, but maybe not right after. For inspiration, J.K. Rowling shared a couple of her rejection letters with her Twitter followers. In response to Robert E. Galbraith, Rowling's old nom de plume, one publisher says, "I regret that we have reluctantly come to the conclusion that we could not publish Harry Potter with commercial success." Book sales alone of the Harry Potter series have grossed an estimated $7.7 billion. Spain nearly built a submarine that couldn't resurface. In 2013, the Spanish government pumped $2.2 billion into a fancy new submarine dubbed the Isaac Peral. Before they finished building the vessel, engineers noticed a serious problem in the design. The unfinished submarine was already so heavy it risked not being able to re-emerge after submerging itself underwater. Concerned engineers were able to trace the mistake back to a simple calculation error when drafting the design. Someone put a decimal point in the wrong space. Fortunately, the mistake was caught before they completed the submarine, and they were able to salvage the submarine by extending the length of the hull. A stockbroker's typo cost a Japanese company $225 million. In December of 2005, a small mistake cost Mizuho Securities Company, a Japanese company, an enormous amount of money. One stockbroker mistyped the data. He meant to offer a single share in JCOM stock for 610,000 yen, about $5,000, on the New York Stock Exchange, but instead, he ended up offering 610,000 shares for 1 yen. Investors pounced on the opportunity, buying up a great deal of the mispriced stock. The loss was somewhat mitigated by stock exchange rules, which only allowed the stocks to be sold for as low as 572,000 yen. Still, the company lost around $225 million due to the mistake. Record label doesn't sign the Beatles. As many of the mistakes in this list have made abundantly clear, hindsight is 20/20. You can never be sure what band is going to make it big. When you're an A&R or executive at a record label, a big part of your job is to roll the dice on artists you think have a chance. Dick Rowe, executive at Decca Records, turned down an obscure band from Liverpool called the Silver Beatles when they auditioned for the label. His reason for passing? He thought guitar music was a fading trend in 1962. Months later, the Beatles signed to EMI. In the year 1964 alone, the Wall Street Journal estimates their record sales grossed $50 million. Russia sold Alaska to the United States. The last frontier wasn't always part of the USA. In fact, it used to belong to Russia. Alexander II didn't think much of Alaska. The harsh weather made it hard to farm, and high transportation costs kept it from being especially profitable as a trading port. He sold the colony to the U.S. for $7.2 million in 1867. Few Russians had explored the land's interior up until that point. Otherwise, they would have noticed what a huge mistake the sale was. The United States clearly got away with robbery during negotiations. Alaska is rich in natural resources like oil and gold. A century and 20 years later, economists estimate Alaska's oil and gas reserves alone are worth $200 billion. Millennium Bridge. Before it was unveiled to the public, the Millennium Bridge across the River Thames in London was hailed as a pure expression of engineering structure and an absolute statement of our capabilities at the beginning of the 21st century. Unfortunately, for the people behind the project, the Millennium Bridge got off to a shaky start. When the bridge opened in 2000, the first pedestrians to cross felt it swaying beneath their feet. Engineers had designed the bridge to withstand wind and weight, but not the simple motion of a crowd of humans walking across. The mistake took $6.3 million and 2 years to fix. Lost Bitcoin. James Howells is a British IT worker who made a mistake that cost him over $100 million. In 2009, Howells began using his personal laptop to mine the cryptocurrency Bitcoin. Although his laptop eventually stopped working, he held on to the drive that contained his 7,500 Bitcoin, worth $127 million today. Then, in 2013, he mistakenly put that drive in the bin, and it was taken out with the trash. As late as 2017, Howells was still lobbying his city to allow him to search the landfill for his lost Bitcoin. Unfortunately, the drive is by now certainly buried under 6 years of waste, and according to the city, undertaking a search would cause a huge environmental impact on the surrounding area. What do you think of these mistakes? Let us know in the comment section below, and hey, if you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so we can continue giving you the best contents. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.